The March 21st, 2013 PGCPS Board of Education meeting featured discussion on the proposed changes in the school system structure, along with the good news about the significant improvements in the county's turnaround schools.
A coalition of civic organizations, school employee unions, parental groups, interest groups, and business partners. We are opposed, Citizens for an Elected Board is opposed to the county executive's proposal to revise the structure of how our schools are governed. We see it as a blatant political grab and will constantly work in opposition. This proposal is undemocratic and raises real questions about civil rights issues. It undercuts the voice of the public who have made decisions about its representatives who will govern the school district and decisions about how our schools will be, how policies will be implemented. This has been done without any meaningful input and breaks all the rules in that there were no public hearings, there have been no town halls, no input from the public. It is a process that is being attempted to be put in place without telling the public and parents how this process will be different. How will it provide real solutions to the issues that our students, staff, and the community face with regard to education. What we do want is an effective board that is accountable, transparent, and constantly working to prepare our students to compete in this global world and to prepare them for jobs of the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hakey. Our next speaker is Shirley Adams, ASPE Local 2250, President.
Good evening, Madam Chair and school board members. My name is Shirley Adams, and I'm the president of ASPE Local 2250. I would like to read an email Local 2250 sent to our delegates and senators today opposing the takeover of the Prince George's County Public Schools by the county executive. To the Prince George's County delegates and senators, on Sunday, March 17, 2013, ASPE Local 2250 learned through the newspaper that County Executive Rashawn Baker was planning a takeover of the county school system through the county's delegates and senators. Needless to say, Local 2250 was completely unaware of the county executive's plans. At no time did anyone from the county executive office contact Local 2250 for input or even give Local 2250 a courtesy notice of these plans. Even today, Local 2250 has only seen unofficial drafts of the proposed legislation. Based on the review of these unofficial documents, Local 2250 is opposed to any legislation that places the school system under the control of the county executive. Under this legislation, the county executive would have nearly absolute power over all public schools with the sole authority to hire a superintendent who in turn would have the power to close schools, fire teachers and employees, and abrogate labor contracts. Under this legislation, the county executive would add 6 appointed members to the board in addition to the elected Board of Education. How does this improve the education system? All you have done is create a very large advisory committee of the appointed and elected members that has no ability to affect change in the education system and left the real control of the education system in the hands of a county executive and a hand-picked superintendent. This legislation comes as a surprise attack from the county executive. Why did the county executive wait 10 weeks in the General Assembly session to introduce this plan? Why not openly discuss this with the community weeks or even months ago? Why not hold community meetings, discuss his ideas and plans with all stakeholders and partners in the education system and try to reach a consensus on what is good for the children of our system? There are so many unanswered questions which cannot be properly addressed before the General Assembly ends its session in the next several weeks. Local 2250 urges and requests that all of our delegates and senators oppose any legislation that will place the welfare of our children and workforce under one person's control. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Henry Armwood.
Good evening, Madam Chair. My name is Henry Armwood. Now that I'm on this side of the petition, you cannot tell me to shush anymore or behave myself. I'm here to speak out against Mr. Baker or the executive's proposed legislation and ask the legislature to vote against these amendments. I've been a supporter of Mr. Baker. I actually believe he is sincere in his desire to help the school system. But we need school governance that is not dependent on one man who will have to leave office before the job is done. I am disappointed by the way he has done this. He has lied to the electorate about his intentions. I have heard him say directly that the board was doing a good job and he only wanted to collaborate with the board to improve the schools. This is undemocratic. It is disrespectful to the citizens of this county. This is an unprecedented power grab. It was done literally in the dark of night in such a manner to prevent public debate and input. The emergency was that the executive is angry that the board has done its duty under law to select a superintendent after conducting a national search using a premier search firm to research, do background checks, investigations that included interviewing associates, verifying credentials. He wants to make that decision alone. Who is he going to choose? What is his vision? He will determine the salary of employees, eliminating negotiated agreements solely by himself. This proposal is so extreme that he has to violate many statutes of Maryland law regarding school governance and oversight. These proposals are always directed at majority-minority districts. What is it about the black electorate that our politicians feel that we are incompetent except when we vote for them? We need to continue progress, improving school systems. School systems, like children, need consistent vision and stability. Incremental improvement is frustrating. It's slow, but it builds a foundation and it works. There are no quick fixes. Look at DC, Philadelphia, Chicago, and Detroit. Is that what we want for our county? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Armwood. Kenneth Haynes, President, Prince George's County Educators Association.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. On behalf of the 9,000 employees represented by the Prince George's County Educators Association, we wish to go on the record as categorically opposed to the county executive's proposal to make the superintendent of the Prince George's County Public Schools a cabinet post in the county government. What events have transpired that could precipitate or justify such drastic measures? To paraphrase an old Wendy's commercial, where's the crisis? The Board of Education has been recognized nationally for transparency in the budgeting process, having won for 3 consecutive years the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award from Government Finance Officers Association. Management and labor have participated in courageous discussions on improving practice in the classroom and establishing more rigorous methods of evaluation. The Secretary of Education, Arnie Duncan, has been praising our school system all across this nation as a model for collaboration around the best interests of children. For as long as I can remember, and I've been around a little while, Prince George's County has made steady, incremental progress each and every year on state-mandated assessments, in spite of the fact that over the last decade, our local county contribution to the school system has fallen from 49% to 38% of the total Board of Education budget. Does our school system face challenges? Absolutely, many. But the critics would be hard-pressed to find another school system in this nation that is coping so successfully with those challenges. So, how will making the superintendent a political employment of the county executive resolve the problem of the revolving door at the superintendent's office? If the county executive has total control of the purse strings, how will the Board of Education be able to implement needed policy reforms in the absence of resources? How does diluting the Board of Education with so many appointed positions increase responsiveness to constituent concerns? These are but a few of our concerns about the poorly conceived amendments to legislation that are being ramrodded through Annapolis with no public debate. The vetting process has been totally circumvented. Along with a growing number of groups in Prince George's County, PGCEA stands in solidarity with the Board of Education in your opposition to placing far too much power in the office of the county executive by eliminating the checks and balances on executive power that are so revered in our democracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haynes. Deborah Sell.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Deborah Sell, and you can see I have a cold. As an education advocate, I have often challenged our Board of Education on issues concerning the supports given to our special needs students. However, I have found that the majority of them have always been attentive to my concerns and genuinely want to provide a quality education for each and every student in the school system. I was not overly concerned when Ms. Valentino Smith suggested that the state legislature form a task force to look at school governance because I felt that we had room for improvement. However, I am deeply concerned with the amendments that have been proposed, which call for the county executive to take control over the school system. These last-minute maneuvers have the effect of disenfranchising the citizens and electorate of our county, but more than that, they remove the safeguards that we parents and students feel that we have in addressing any educational concerns that we might have. I feel that we have been betrayed and believe that such a radical change in school governance should only be taken after careful and thoughtful deliberation and ultimately should be decided by the voters in a general referendum. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sell. Mark Spencer.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, members of the board. My name is Mark Spencer. I'm a longtime county resident and an attorney practicing law here in Prince George's County. And I'm testifying this evening in opposition to County Executive Rashawn Baker's announced plan to take over control and governance of the county school board by way of House Bill 1107. Under HB 1107 and the amendments that were disclosed to the public only in the past few days, the county executive would exercise nearly absolute power over all public schools because of his sole authority to hire and fire the superintendent of schools. Because the superintendent would serve at the pleasure of Mr. Baker, the county executive would ultimately control any decision by the superintendent to close schools, fire teachers, and potentially eliminate labor contracts. The power to control all financial decisions would also rest in the office of the county executive. If enacted, HB 1107 would render the elected members of the school board mere advisors and observers without any meaningful tools to address the concerns of constituents from their respective districts. Curiously, HB 1107 shifts nearly the entire responsibility to the school board for raising academic achievement and improving parent involvement in school affairs, but fails to provide for any staffing or other resources to empower the school board to successfully carry out this mission. Obviously, the bill has been rushed before the legislature at the 11th hour to prevent any meaningful community discussion or input, and to avoid any real opportunity for concerned residents to raise their voices in opposition to this takeover. This bill is unfair, unwise, is seriously anti-democratic, and smells of a naked power grab. We should all oppose HB 1107, and I urge the board members and residents to demand that our state legislators reject this measure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer. Janice Hall. Ernest Moore, President, Prince George's County Parents and Teachers Association Council.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, board members. My name is Ernest Moore. I'm the president of Prince George's County PTA Council. I represent all the PTAs within the Prince George's County school system, and we actually provide leadership and support for those individual organizations. I'm here today to actually speak against this individual proposal in reference to this amendment for HB 1107. Over the last several days, we have watched this played out in the media without enough information to know exactly what direction or what the overall intent was. Until the last few days, we just received some information, enough for us to read exactly what's going on with this amendment. We actually looked at a first 5-page amendment for the task force, and then we looked at an additional 56 pages of amendments. That is appalling to me, especially when something did not come across us as an input or any type of public forum. As representatives for our parents and our PTAs, we're looking for people to be transparent. We're looking for people to be open. We're looking for us to be able to give our individual input. And we cannot do that in the dark. We represent too much for our individual children in our county, so we're looking for our individual leadership to help us to be able to move forward. As I stated earlier, we are actually caught in the blind when it comes to this individual issue. We're here to support leadership in moving forward. And the only way for us to move forward, we have to move forward together. We cannot do it by ourselves. One of the things I've learned since I moved in Prince George's County is that we do not have an issue of resources. We don't. We got an issue of unity. Until we come together, we cannot move this forward. So again, I've opposed this individual legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Colleagues, that concludes our list of speakers on this agenda item. And with that, I ask I'm sorry, did I have? Oh, no, I think I had a speaker. Ms. Sproul? I think you were on. Give me a second. Melody Sproul.
Good afternoon, board and chair and my neighbors. I am here. Wasn't planning to come today. However, I made several calls today. I made a lot of calls today to the delegates in the Senate offices. I asked a lot of the leaders whether they were for or against the House Bill 1107, and some had no comment. But there was one who had a comment that wasn't very nice, and that was from Mr. Paul Pinsky's office. And Mr. Paul Pinsky's office eventually hung up on me, and actually I was very polite. Normally I'm not, and I will just tell you, normally I'm not that polite when I'm advocating. I guess I have an issue with that because the first thing is love. I was at my son's school, so I wasn't able to really speak. However, how am I able to trust a senator or a delegate or county executive who make decisions deceitfully to me, because I went to all the meetings and this was never mentioned, not one single time. But the first is love. I don't care how many initials you have behind your name. The first thing to me is love. So that was the first problem I have. The second problem I have, if this bill passes, and I guarantee you this, there are going to be two things. I'm going to pull my son, and I'm going to take some of my friends with me, and they're all top students, and I can guarantee that. Or two, I am going to sue for interest and interest test, because I want to know what interest do you have in this. I am concerned. This was done in the dark of the night, very deceitful. I was really upset today regarding how I was treated. And I'm hoping that you guys really fight, because I'm going to fight as well. And I'm hoping you guys are in it all the way. I hope you're in it all the way, because I'm in it all the way. I made calls. I made a lot of calls. I spent all day calling. And there was only one person who would There was only one person who was stamping, that was Mr. Penske's office, and they weren't nice to me. And I'm assuming they weren't nice because they're part of this bill. It has his name all over it. And I'm just letting everyone know it has his name all over it. That's all I have to say. I hope you're all fighting, and I'll see you Saturday if you're there. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you. Mr. Lucci?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Prince George's County Board of Education. What a difference a week makes, right? So the first two matters on your agenda have been withdrawn in Annapolis, and so you may just, there's no reason to take any further action on those. The third one, though, however, is very live. House Bill 1107 yesterday passed the House of Delegates in the current task force form without the amendments, and it's now in the property of the State Senate of Maryland. Yesterday, the County Executive's Office released the 55 pages of amendments that I have looked at, and I'll try and summarize them for you, but to be able to summarize 55 pages in a few minutes is a very difficult thing to do. The board, under these amendments, if they were to be adopted, would expand by 6 people to a total of 16 people, including the 10 you have now and 6 more. Not all would be voting, but they would all be there at the dais. The selection of the superintendent would shift from the board to the county executive. The county executive, he would serve at the county executive's pleasure, although it also says there's a 4-year term, so that's kind of an internal contradiction there. With regard to the board's current budget authority, that would go to the superintendent, except that the board would be able, by a 2/3 vote, to change categories 1% one way or the other, the 9 different budget categories that you have. With regard to your personnel powers, those would shift exclusively to the superintendent. The remaining powers that would be in the hands of the board would be parental engagement, academic policy, and curriculum policy. Although, as you know, the biggest policy document that the board adopts is the budget. And so without the budget, you don't really have much authority with regard to the policy. There's a lot of new language in there that's assigned to the board in terms of I would call it jargon, academic jargon, in terms of things to work on. But those are all in terms of an advisory capacity. The provision says that the superintendent has ultimate say with regard to wages, and the way it's written, I don't know if it was intended that way, but the way it's written does raise questions about whether that would preempt collective bargaining agreements and whether it would give the superintendent sole discretion to make wage decisions for the employees of the school system. So the Senate is now the next ones to act, and they can adopt these amendments or not, or some other set if they want to. And then it goes back to the House of Delegates, where the House delegation must then agree to the amendments or not agree to the amendments, or have their own set of amendments. If they have their own set of amendments and there's a disagreement in the form between the House version and the Senate version, it goes to a conference committee. The General Assembly adjourns on April 8th at midnight, Monday, April 8th, so we have about 15 more days left of the General Assembly session. The other unusual thing is the House delegation is going to be holding a hearing this Saturday morning, 9 a.m., room 150 of the Low House Office Building, a public hearing on 1107 and the amendments. They've invited only 2 persons to testify, those being the county executive and the chair of the Prince George's County Board of Education. Other individuals and organizations may submit written testimony, but there'll be no opportunity to present oral testimony to the delegation. This is unusual because the actual bill is still in the possession of the Senate, and yet the House is having a hearing, but I guess the idea is that there's not too many Saturdays left before the General Assembly adjourns. So that's basically the situation. That's a brief description of the bill. There are many parts within the bill that contradict internally. Many parts of it are ambiguous. Many parts of it are unenforceable. But I assume the legislature will look at those amendments and either and put their own brand on them if they do decide to go forward with it. So that's my report. The only other thing I can report on tonight is the House Bill 1108 with regard to requiring that turf fields be built at every high school in Prince George's County. That bill had a hearing scheduled before the House Ways and Means Committee. That hearing was canceled. The bill was then referred to the Appropriations Committee, where no hearing has been scheduled yet. And so that has been in the standing committees of the House for about 4 weeks since it was voted out by the delegation, and we'll see what happens from there. And that is my report.
Thank you, Mr. Lucci. At this time, colleagues, if there are any questions with regard to House Bill 1107, I guess the question is, since it, Mr. Eubanks?
Mr. Lucci, you said that individuals could submit written information since there are only going to be 2 speakers that day.
Correct.
We need to have it on record exactly to who or what phone number, what email address, so that people can do that.
Okay, it's PG2 at mlis.state.md.us. PG2 at mlis.state.md.us.
Thank you, Mr. Lucci.
Mr. Burrows?
Mr. Lucci, I have some questions for you, and you might not be able to answer all these questions, I understand. Just help me understand the bill, if you would. So some of the rationale that I've read in the newspaper lately is that the reason why the county executive has introduced this bill is because he wanted to see achievement yesterday. But under this bill, from what I read, all academic policy and all of the academic piece of this is still left to the school board to do. Can you explain the rationale there?
No.
Okay. My next question. The other piece of this that I heard that was, the county executive's rationale, or supporters' rationale, however you want to phrase it, was that, trying to be diplomatic, was that our financial house is not in order here. And so I think to myself as a board member, we clearly need to do more for our employees financially, but we just did 2% raises. We're negotiating other things in the contract. We're making progress, and we have a surplus. And with all due respect, I'm getting calls from county government workers, and they're receiving 5 furlough days, and they're in a deficit. So I say deficit, 5 furlough days versus a surplus, and some sort of raises. So I just want to, if you can help me understand, you're the lobbyist, I'm not the expert. If you could help me understand, I guess, the financial rationale behind that as well.
Well, I mean, the experts are the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States. They gave this board an award for the transparency in the way that the budget is presented. And that's not given away easily. So I think that's a real testament to the board and the school system and how it protects the funds that are given to it by the public.
So if it's not academics and it's not the budget, I'm just a little confused. I mean, please help me understand.
I wish I could, Mr. Burrows. There's a limit to what I could do.
Okay. Well, if you please find out, please, I would like to see a report back on my questions, because I would really like to know.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Ms. Higgins?
Thank you very much, and I apologize for being about 15, 20 minutes late. I had a meeting I had to go to. I appreciate my colleagues questioning and wondering about this bill, because I think the points that you raised were very valuable. And I guess following Mr. Burrow's lead, have an additional question, and that's that I'm wondering whether the authors of this bill or the county executive were aware that the Prince George's County School Board was one of 3 finalists in the nation in 2012 for getting an award for school board governance from the Council of Urban Boards of Education, which is part of the National School Board Association. Are they aware of that?
I think that's unlikely, but that's certainly something I'm going to make them aware of the next few days.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we will help you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're very welcome. Any other comments? Do you need a motion? Any papers?
I move that we oppose Bill HB 1107.
Is there a second? It's been properly moved and second that the Board of Education will oppose House Bill 1107. Any further discussion?
With the proposed amendments, I suspect.
With that, I'm sorry.
Because previously you had opposed the bill, so.
That's right.
I'm sorry. I move to oppose Bill HB 1107 and its 52-page amendments.
Second. I second it.
It's been properly moved and second. Any further discussion?
I have one more question.
Mr. Burrows?
Mr. Lucci, when this bill first came to me, it was 4 pages, and now it's 50-something pages?
I think 55 is what I counted.
55 pages. And also the subject has changed. Can you explain how in an app, it's almost a completely different bill. So what are the, I guess, legislative implications that are involved with that, if you understand my question?
Sure. Well, the Constitution says that every bill must have one subject. And so the Attorney General may be asked whether the subject that the bill have before is the same subject as the subject of these amendments. And I think they're very different subjects. Also, the Prince George's House delegation has its own internal rules, which are still enforceable, that every bill receive a hearing in the county, or else, unless there's 2/3 of the vote to waive that. Now, House Bill 1107 received the hearing in the county in December, but what we have here, son of House Bill 1107, was certainly not recognized at all by any of that substance at that public hearing. So I guess that raises a question about whether the actual bill really did have a hearing in the county.
And so why would that happen? Why would supporters do that? Why not enter in a bill at the beginning of session, have a community debate and dialogue, take it, hold a community forum, be very upfront, open, and transparent about it to begin with? Why, help me understand the rationale behind adding, 50 pages of amendments on this late before session's about to end. Help me understand.
I can't speak for the county executive on that. Someone will have to ask him why he would wait till now. I don't know what his motives were.
And also,
Mr. Lucci? Hi.
Oh, hi.
So, in terms of what you just said about the one subject rule, that would then force, now that the bill is going over to the Senate, they can't handle that bill in that format. Is that correct?
Well, that's up to their an opinion from the Attorney General. I'm just saying that it's questionable.
Well, as I understand it, it is the Attorney General's opinion that that's not permissible. So if that's the case, is it possible that the Senate staff could draft a new bill so that they can get around that particular opinion?
Yes, it's possible to introduce a brand new bill, but because it's so late in the session, it would require a suspension of the rules. Suspension of the rules requires a 2/3 vote by the House or the Senate, who's ever introduced the bill, right when it's introduced, which at this late date could be done, but it's another major hurdle.
So knowing that the bill is going to be going to the Senate, is it possible if there was someone who were interested in the movement of the bill or whether or not a new bill is introduced in the Senate, could they contact their senator?
Oh, sure. I'm sure that would be a good idea.
And how would they do that?
301-858-3000 and ask for your senator's office.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lucci. We have a properly moved motion that has been seconded, and we're still in discussion. And so let me just say that a lot goes into running a school system, especially a large urban school district like Prince George's County Public Schools. There are many issues and views to consider and very difficult decisions that must be made. And I can assure you, I have said it several times, that after 23 years of working in the second largest Department of Corrections in the state of Maryland, that this is still the hardest work I have ever done. Our school system has been transparent and open to the public for feedback at every major decision that we have made, and most recently in the current superintendent search for Prince George's County Public Schools. Despite the rhetoric that we constantly hear, our students are excelling in about every single area and have been doing so every single year. Maryland is not #1 for 5 years in a row because of high-performing districts going from a 92% to 95%. It is because of Prince George's County Public School students who have shown steady, continuous progress. It is an insult to our employees to suggest that they are not doing what they need to do every single day in the classroom to help our students. And yes, we recognize that we are not where we want to be, but it is unconscionable to look at how our unions have worked with the administration over the last several years, where we had $300 and $400 million in cuts, and they have been steadfast. Collective bargaining is at the core of union work in Prince George's County, and we believe in it. I was disappointed at the magnitude by which this bill seeks control over our schools, particularly without any public engagement or an opportunity to at least weigh in the public. It is important to note that the education governing structure in our county has shifted numerous times in the past 10 years, and the current structure is the only one that we can show has demonstrated the kinds of academic improvements over the last several years. Let me address that for a minute. Under a process by which you work at the will of a person or an entity, we've had how many superintendents over the last decade? One of our employees told me that she's been here 14 years and have had nearly 7 superintendents. If you work at the pleasure of a person who's elected every 4 years, does that guarantee continuity and sustainability in leadership of the superintendent if you're working at their pleasure? There must be a way for us to do this right. When I think about how this is being played out in the public, I really want to take the high road because this is not about adult-driven decisions. Our children do not deserve to be played out in the public as inferior. Every time, you can clap. They do not, because they hear the news just like we do. And at some point, we have to balance owning what's ours and at the same time recognizing that they have been showing steady progress. And so I have personally reached out to our county executive, and to date, he has agreed to have a meeting. And I can assure you that I will be talking about children, not personal interests of this board chair, because I have been here going on 7 years. And the reason why this is the hardest work I've ever done is because our school system has for years been the place where elected officials, unfortunately, have used to gain what they needed to stay elected. I'm saying it. And the board started pushing back and saying, no, I am not going to let that child jump another child who's in line for that position in a school. And it's hard when you've been used to being able to use the school district in a way to meet your own needs. That doesn't meet the needs of kids, and I don't support that. I'm not saying that to be personal. I'm saying it because it's important to recognize that our school system will not move forward as long as we are satisfied with pockets of success. And pockets of success can only happen when places and people, when people in places like that control who gets in what programs and who gets what opportunities. Maryland is also for the 7th year in a row, for the College Board, top in the country for AP classes. And that is not because of other school districts who are offering them. It's because Prince George's County is trying our very best to do the best we can for our children. And I'll say and end with this. I commit to the community and I commit to my colleagues that I will do everything in my power to make the best choice in education for our children and the best structure to determine that. Ms. Jackson, call the roll.
On the motion, Ms. Beck?
I need clarity on the motion. It's my understanding we currently have a opposition to 1107 and have I'm uncertain which set of amendments were adopted because I have seen several formally and informally over the past maybe 72 hours, and I oppose all of the series of amendments.
Ms. Beck, can I change my amendment then?
Yeah, that would be helpful for me.
Yes, I can do that. I move to oppose HB 1107 and all amendments to that bill. Does that work?
That's very helpful to me.
Thank you.
All as of 8:15 tonight, right?
As of 8:15 tonight.
And thereafter.
Thereafter.
And probably there.
Well, shouldn't say that.
I'm sorry, second that?
I find that very helpful. Aye.
Mr. Barrows?
Aye.
Ms. Epps?
Aye.
Ms. Eubanks?
Aye.
Ms. Fellows?
No.
Ms. Higgins?
Absolutely, aye.
Ms. Waller?
Aye.
Ms. Boston?
Yes.
Ms. Jacobs?
Aye.
Motion passed.
Thank you. Anything else?
No, thank you very much. See you in Annapolis.
No, wait until I introduce them. And they can all come up and then you can ask them questions. Dr. Marla Dean, Principal Drew Freeman, Dr. Michael Robinson, Principal Thomas Johnson, Wendell Coleman, Principal Oxon Hill Middle, Tori Walker, Resident Principal, Hillary Gardner, Principal Benjamin Stoddard, and I also like to bring up Bob Glasscock, who is our point of contact at MSDE. So now you can applaud. Oh, is Fletcher? Oh, and Fletcher. Fletcher James, Principal of Thurgood Marshall. We'll open up to questions.
Thank you so much. Oh, don't be nervous. You have to come up because we have a lot of questions. So I'm going to yield to, did you guys say Ms. Waller? Ms. Waller.
Yes, I wanted to just start off and express my thanks to each of you all. Last fall, I was at a presentation that was done by Mr. Ryans, and I think several of you were down in Nashville. And just to hear the stories of where you came from, the hardships that you all encountered the first year with the students of changing the climate, the thought processes and everything that you all have overcome to instill in those young people, to help them know that, and to believe in them and let them know that there's a world out there for them and that you all are preparing for their future. I just want to commend you. I know we could ask a whole lot about academic data and, you know, different things like that, but I've heard your story. I believe in you. I think it's just great. It's wonderful. Keep the work up. We appreciate, this community appreciates what you all are doing. And I know that you all are, you're young, and you're all going to have these young people that are going to come back to you all and say thank you. I mean, it was hard on the young people because you had to change their mindset. I mean, they didn't want to work. They probably didn't want to come to school. They didn't want to study. But you all gave them the love, the attention, and instilled in them the values. You're preparing them for high school. Dr. Arbogast, thank you also for your vision for instilling what you've done with this group of leaders. So I wanted to say that, and then I can come back and talk about data or whatever. But we really appreciate what you all are doing. Thank you.
Ms. Higgins?
Yes, one of the principals, and I think you're standing right in front, so I apologize for calling on you, but you had talked about having a discussion with the board, and I know you didn't expect, but this really is a real opportunity to hear from you all in terms of what are important things to make sure. I could ask what are the two things that are critical, but I think in the video you talked about, you know, safety and teachers, so I don't want to just limit it to, you know, pick two things that are the most important, but what kind of things are important to make sure that we dialogue so we take the expertise that you all have and continue to share that with your colleagues. Could you say your name again, please?
Principal of Drew Freeman.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Dean.
Thank you for having us. First, I would like to say our colleague, Ebony Cross, also had a death in her family, so she couldn't be with us tonight. And the first thing I would like to say is just the support that we've received from each other has been tremendous, from Dr. Ryans and from Dr. Arbogast. We want to publicly thank each other and those two individuals for the support that they've given us. I think Ms. Garner said it best. The staffing priority status is essential to the work that we do, and how we can be creative in that process is one of the key points that we need to have dialogue about.
What do you mean when you say creative in that process?
There are provisions.
I'm sorry
and policy.
to do this to you, but it's very valuable, and you know we probably won't be back until next year. So, or
there are provisions and policies that I believe in intent are very equitable, but sometimes means that some of the best teachers don't get to some of the most needy schools, and I think we just want to figure out a way to address that. I think the district has come a long way in being creative on that issue, but that needs to be an ongoing dialogue continuously in conjunction with EA, who also has come to the table to assist us in this regard. But we really want to continue that dialogue so that the best teachers get to the neediest school in turnaround schools, but also in other areas, in other communities.
Any of the other colleagues in terms of what would be important to discuss so we're all on the same page?
Yes.
Yes, sir, if you could say your name.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. My name is Wendell Coleman, principal at Oxon Hill Middle School, and also the priority staffing piece. And one of the things that we used to do is have a transfer consortium, and that's where teachers would get a chance to come out and meet principals and get a chance to get a feel for different schools. And for some reason, we haven't done that in the last few years. And so I was really hopeful that we would get a chance to do that again this year, because sometimes even in our own system, our schools are still seen as places that aren't productive places to work, aren't good places to be. And so, but when I get a chance to talk to a teacher and be able to share the great things that we're doing, it gives me a chance to change minds. But without getting that opportunity to get in front of these teachers, it's hard to be able to, get them to know that we exist. And so this opportunity is fantastic. And the other thing I'd like to mention is that when we have not extra positions, but positions like our social worker, our student advocates, so many of our schools, our students are facing just crisis after crisis after crisis. We are seeing more students who need real mental health services, that my social worker is actually inundated with help. And then once you build the culture and climate where students feel comfortable talking to you, even more things come out. And so we need to continue to have those types of services and even more services available. Another critical thing for us, for students at our schools, is the summertime, when students aren't in session. Our students need creative and productive places to go, and we are willing to be there. We have staff that are willing to come and willing to program for them, but we again need that support, that financial support, to be able to hold these programs, because we know when students aren't in session, different things get to happen. I mean, these are active students, and they're going to find things to do, and I'd much rather them be with me somewhere where I know that they're going to be safe and supported than just out in the street. Many times when I ask us, is there a time limit? I'm sorry. Many times when
keep it under an hour, Wendell.
An hour?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Many times when I ask my students what their plans are for the summer, they just look at me like, well, I'm not doing anything. And that's not acceptable for me. And so, we're going to plan something. If it can't be 8 weeks, we're going to try to do a few weeks and then have a little boot camp for our students that are incoming, because now that we have a couple years under our belt, our feeder schools, students are now excited to come to our school because now they have heard better things about our schools. So we have parents now that are excited to send our students. We have other students that are excited to come. And so, we have the capability to do it. We just need to keep that support. We have the ability to do it. We just have to keep that support coming, okay?
Other people? Other?
Yes, Fletcher James, principal of Thurgood Marshall Middle School. I'm really appreciative of the academic instructional support that we receive from the turnaround office, and also the continued encouragement and Dr. Ryans and Dr. Arbogast running, blocking for us and knocking down some of the roadblocks that we have as far as getting things done in the system. It's important with the high number of teacher turnovers that we have in these schools. And for instance, in my school, I probably have more than half my staff with less than 3 years of experience, that we continue to get the support from Turnaround Office, MSDE, as well as Research for Better Teaching, and helping all teachers move forward and gaining experience and knowledge and skills in instruction.
Any other principals? Yeah.
Good evening.
Name?
I'm Michael Robinson, principal at Thomas Johnson Middle School.
Thank you.
I want to say that it has been a profound, pleasurable journey these 5 years that I've been in the state and in the county. I think this has been, last year and this year have been the most exciting and the most exuberant. And I think that's large in part because we had the opportunity to actually, it's a little different when you're actually able to really touch your supervisor and actually able to work side by side with him. And also in a large system such as this, if I were not a turnaround principal, I might not have as much access to Dr. Arbogast as we have had the opportunity to have during this tenure with Turnaround. And so that has been very, very beneficial to us because we have an opportunity to vent. I'm sure he needs Excedrin when he leaves our meetings, but we have an opportunity to vent and actually voice our opinions about things that we feel are important to us as principals, as turnaround principals, because the work is not easy. And when you're looking at a school that is a failing school, you know, it takes a lot to turn the school around. And the first thing that you're working with is culture and climate, but you're juggling all these other balls in the air at the same time, with staffing and parental engagement, trying to incentivize the students so that they are able to be productive in school. And so it's really important, and I think that for me, the most intricate thing in all of this has been working and learning from Dr. Arbogast and working and learning with Dr. Ryans and working so closely with them and working with our colleagues because it's an intimacy that we share that's none like any other opportunities that I've had in the past. And so this has really been meaningful. And just really trying to spread the word in terms of what turnaround, because it's not an ugly thing. It's very intricate work and very interesting work. But I think it's important that the board and everyone down understands what we're doing. And it's really important, I think, for people throughout the county to understand what it really means to be a turnaround school, because our needs are different. And I know that other schools share the same things that we do, but our needs are very, very different. Our schools are some of the toughest middle schools in the county, but I think that we've done a remarkable job collectively to really turn our schools around. Lots of work still to be done, but I think we've come a long ways in making our scholars, our parents, trying to make you proud, making our county proud and our citizens of our communities. Thank you.
One more, Madam Chair, I'd like the gentleman from MSDE who has joined in terms of any comments that would be helpful for the board.
Sure. Good evening. I'm Robert Glasscock. I'm the Executive Director of the Breakthrough Center at the Maryland State Department of Education. And my role at the State Department is to work across divisions so that we can partner with a phenomenal district like Prince George's County. I work at the national level a lot, and I always lifting up Prince George's County for the phenomenal dedication and work they're doing in the turnaround work. And this is coming from President Obama, Arnie Duncan, as his national initiative to turn around the 5,000 lowest achieving schools in this country. So I just want to thank you first as a board. And also want to provide a tremendous amount of acknowledgement for these phenomenal principals here and just incredible work. I couldn't, with Dwayne Arbogast and Ed Ryans, two phenomenal leaders with this turnaround effort. One of the things that I think is most important to recognize and lift up from your district is that in 2008, Mass Insights, a nonprofit institution, did a study on turnaround, what the research was saying, what were the effective practice, what were the new emerging models. And one of the things they stated in their research, the most significant factor that influences sustainability of turnarounds is the responsiveness of the district to these schools. And I just want to acknowledge the board's support, acknowledge the leadership support, and the principals, because you are demonstrating that this is not just a grant, that you are looking at policy, you're looking at staffing, you're looking at resource allocation, and you are responding to sustain this effort over time. And that's the answer. So I just wanted to let you know that you're on the right track. We're seeing good results in achievement growth, from a tremendous change in culture and climate from where these schools first started. You heard it from the community members, you've heard it from your principals. Just keep going the right way, and we are honored to partner with Prince George's County Schools. So thank you so much.
Thank you. What are you doing Saturday morning, sir?
What was the name of that conference room?
I know. I'm sure my colleagues will also say this. You know, our chair spoke about the hard work of being on the board, And you know, I had no idea when I took my oath of office how much time that I would dedicate to this work. And I don't regret 1 second of it, as much as, and it's so rewarding to see the hard, dedicated work of you all principals in front of us, and the hard work of the administrators and the staff to make a difference in the life of the child, and to see those kids talk about, you know, they care about us. They could do something else, but they're doing this. I know while we talk about some of our hours that we put in, it doesn't even compare to the dedication of each of you and all of your staff. So thank you very much for making such a difference in the life of our children.
Thank you.
Actually, you could stay there because I'm not sure if I have people who buzz in and may have questions. Ms. Fellows?
Thank you. Congratulations on what you do. And we know the challenges that you face in your schools. Can you talk to us about some of the community involvement that you have specifically, and again, congratulations, Ms. Gardner. I look forward to coming over to your school next month for the town hall. And Dr. Dean, there's some wonderful events that you have with your children. Can you talk about the community engagement that you have and the wraparound services that you implement in your schools?
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I thought that I had evaded that. Some of the partnerships that we have had the opportunity to engage in at Benjamin Stoddard over the past 3 years, a partnership with Community of Hope. They have been instrumental in our anti-bullying Way to Peace campaign.
Community of Hope AME Church?
Yes, Community of Hope AME Church. Very instrumental in a family reunion event this summer in collaboration with our local TNI.
Mm-hmm.
Those partnerships have been really important because they have served twofold in terms of mentoring programs for our students that need it the most, working in collaboration with the students that have been targeted for suspension. They have come in to directly provide interventions after school for our school. In addition to that, working with parents through different health initiatives with the health department as well as TNI. So that's been very instrumental since we've been at Benjamin Stoddard in the first year of turnaround.
Thank you.
Ms. Epps?
Oh, I thought she wanted to hear from about Drew Freeman.
Yeah. Or any of the schools, of the community services that you have and the wraparound services
Actually,
that you have.
can I interrupt for just a second?
Mm-hmm.
We were all stunned by by the murders that we've seen, and right after that we had a meeting, and Hillary was talking about the mother of the victim had no place to go, and she went to Benjamin Stoddard the next morning. And I think that's a very important narrative for our community, that in such a tragedy, where the family goes is to these schools. I don't think there's a more incredible testament than that, and I just thought we would mention that. I'm sorry, Mark.
No, absolutely. I have the most fantastic community in the world, Suitland. When I came as the turnaround principal, some of the community members met me at the door and said, this is what you need to know about us, and we're also here to help. And in that regard, we have developed wonderful partnerships. The Steer Center actually changed their name, which was Suitland Family Life Development, and then they changed it to Suitland Technology Education Engagement Resource Center to support our school. We were able to develop a partnership with Boys and Girls Club. We have the first Boys and Girls Club of Greater Washington, which helps my students after school. We have Omega Go. We have so many people who've come to the table and who sit with me. In fact, last summer I had a student pass of a severe asthma attack. I said, I don't want to experience that again. I talked to my community partners, and a week ago we had 16 doctors providing asthma screenings for all the students in the school. So those are the types of things that we do. We're always in touch with them. And tomorrow we have a conference for girls with community partners. Benjamin Stoddard and Drew Freeman. So without them, it's absolutely impossible, and they're vital. And then the last group of people I don't think we've acknowledged enough is especially those teachers who started with us that first year, who remained with us all 3 years. They have been through a lot, and they have stayed with us, and we are really appreciative of the hard work that they do every day.
At Oxon Hill Middle School, we have concerned black men who come into our school on a regular basis, Circle of Hope, who also mentor young men. We have 2 groups that mentor our young ladies. We have a partnership with the District Heights Youth and Family Center, where we have a therapist who comes in once a week to address some of those concerns that I spoke about earlier with the mental health issues of our students. We have a parent and family engagement specialist at our school who also works very closely with our community to bring in other partners. And I definitely would like to say that, although we stand here as the principals, we definitely represent dynamic staffs, and none of this work could be done without them. So I didn't say that at first, but I couldn't leave without saying that we have phenomenal groups of people at our school who are very dedicated, just as dedicated as we are, to make this work go through. But that's just some of the things that are happening at Oxon Hill Middle School.
Ms. Epps?
Thank you. Again, I have to echo all the congratulations. What I just saw was absolutely phenomenal, and I'm really, really excited about the, we're locking arms as a community right now, but to see us locking arms with, with the state as well is just absolutely awesome. And the reason why I feel so privileged to be a part of this system on behalf of our children. So as you were talking about the wonderful changes that were taking place, and as I looked at the children and was so, so inspired by how they're turning around, I couldn't help but think about my own district, and I guess my question is to you, Dr. Arbogast, about what are the next steps in terms of taking using these models and to take it to scale to other middle schools in the district.
It's interesting you said that. In our last executive council meeting with the turnaround schools, we were actually looking at the TNI initiative, and I asked the principals point blank, if we had the money, how would you spend it? And they, in about 10 minutes, we came up with a plan around wraparound services, social workers, dedicated PPWs around truancy, the relationship with the police officers, having off-site places where people could go for supports but still using the school as a hub. So they had really clear ideas. So now what we have is we have a model that works, and we have proven proposals. Now when we cobble together the right money and the right districts, then I think we can put those in place. So I'm real optimistic that the lessons learned in these schools can be transferred to other schools.
Thank you.
To that point, though, I just want to add that recognizing that the Transforming Neighborhood Initiative communities usually obviously involves our students with the greatest needs. And so the board when we sent our budget over to the county executive, included more than $6 million in that budget specifically for that. And so we're looking forward to the opportunity to make sure that the needs that you're talking about, that you actually get those things, and recognizing that, student-based budgeting is designed to have the funds follow the children who have the greatest needs, and that was an opportunity for us to recognize those schools and add funding to that initiative. So I'm looking forward to seeing this actually grow.
We also had we didn't talk about this a lot, but the No Child Left Behind waiver allowed for changes around how we use Title I money. So the grant for 4 of our schools actually ends June 30th, unbelievably, and yet all of the work will continue because of how we were able to use Title I dollars, and we also set aside money in FY14 to continue the work. So we didn't want to allow this work to stop. So we've actually cobbled together the budget in FY14 to keep this work going.
Thank you. Mr. Burrows?
Dr. Arbogast, I first want to sincerely thank you for your leadership in this. I remember when this was first being implemented, and I was very, very hard on you and very skeptical, and I still, you know, I'm happy with the growth and improvement, and I'm terribly impressed with the work that you all have done. And I think you called him a blocker, and he did, because, you know, well, you know, he's been truly supportive of you all throughout this entire process. He's assured me time after time again that we were moving in the right direction, and we were. So I want to thank you. I want to thank you all for the risk that you took in becoming principals of turnaround schools. I know that could not have been an easy decision on your part. I attended Benjamin Starter Middle School, so I'm happy to see the work that's going on there. So my questions are, first, sort of what you ended with. Actually, before I say that, I just saw Mr. Coleman. Please have 24 copies of this tape made to send to the delegation. Send one to the county executive and to every council member.
You got that?
And our chief of communications is in the back, because this is the work. You know, oftentimes, you know, we're so involved in the headlines and everything else that really does not involve the work. You know, we're actively talking about how do you turn around a school, and you all are doing it. So I want to sincerely thank you for that. And some of the things that stuck out to me, first, you mentioned your staff, having highly effective teachers. And so what I would like to hear from you all, well, I guess this is a larger conversation, is how do we recruit, retain, and how do you best support those highly effective teachers to stay? So that's one thing that I would like to hear. Second, your turnaround schools, you get additional dollars, but there are a lot, you know, there are a lot of things that you do that don't exactly equate to money, but you still, there's still initiatives, things that you do to turn around the school that are not directly tied to a dollar. And I mention that to say, if you all had to talk to a room of non-turnaround principals, what would you tell them to do to shift their school cultures? What advice would you have for them based on what you've learned in this? Whether it's, you know, how do you pull in community partners? How do you support your teachers? How do you build that team? How do you shift cultures? Because you're labeled as a turnaround school, but the issues that your students face are not just unique to turnaround schools. You know, students from all across the district, you know, have needs that you're able to address in your school. So what would you tell to, you know, what best practices have you learned over your time as turnaround principals that you can share with other principals? So that's my second question. And then three, Dr. Arbogast, what really stuck out to me, and this isn't just answer what you want to answer, we can talk offline about the rest. Dr. Arbogast, what really stuck out to me, and I know this even before this meeting, is, you know, when I talked to Mr. Coleman and I talked to the turnaround principals, they always mention the support they get from one another. And I think there's something very special and dynamic about that helps them in their work. And so I realize that this is a special model, a special program, but I feel like that intimacy with the administration, the intimacy with one another, really helps in their, I mean, just correct me if I'm wrong, you know, really helps in their ability to carry out the job, whether it's bouncing ideas off one another, or whatever the case may be. How do we create that sort of sense of community among school leaders in non-turnaround schools? And because not every, there are other like districts, like schools that are not, you know, labeled turnaround. So I want to figure out how to do that. But first, I'll yield the floor to.
So I'll address a few of your many questions.
Okay.
And so one of the things about turnaround schools being a little different, where every middle school has students with their issue, it's the volume of students that come in with a lot of baggage, which mostly adult baggage that has been put on them, but it's just incredible amount of issues that we have to help and work students through in order to get them educated. As far as staffing goes, again, just to be a middle school teacher, you have to be a very special person. But to be a middle school teacher in a turnaround school, you have to have a lot deeper bucket of empathy and understanding and willingness to build relationships with kids. And so when we go to interview, it's going to take us really sorting through the people in order to find the people that are right fit for our schools. And so if we can get priority staffing as far as kind of ahead of some of the other schools and being able to select people to try to find the right people to fit the school with the greatest needs, we probably will be able to move the work along a lot faster, because it's a lot of relationship building with our students, and there's a lot of tough work that have to be done. We have to have people, the right people there. So again, too often I think that if we're put into this pot with all the other schools, there are a lot more attractive things physically and less issues at other schools that we have to face, that it's hard to compete to get those teachers if we don't get pushed ahead in priority in interviewing and selecting teachers.
Okay.
One of the things that we learned, we had pain points along the way in turnaround. And when we tell our story at this point in year 3, it sounds very different than it did in year 1, when all of us came in July and had to staff a building with 30 to 40, sometimes 50 employees. Right. We had to staff the school, from administrators to teachers to paraprofessional support staff. So turnaround work at this stage in year 3 sounds very different. But one of the pain points that we learned is that the cookie cutter approach, what may work in one community may not work in the other. We learned that firsthand. The issues that really plague our schools are issues, really are impactful for education for our students, are issues that are surrounding poverty. And sometimes that's difficult for us to talk about in the framework of education. But those are the things that our students are dealing with when they come in the door. And they're very significant. Through it all, we have, in all of the schools, there have been dramatic gains at every level. Double-digit gains at every level in every school. And so that always is not summarized, because when we may look at the end of the year MSA data, for instance, but if you look at the work that we've been doing from year 1 to year 3, there have been double-digit gains. So some of the things that have made an impact have been the professional development and the supports that we provide for our teachers. Our teachers, we have teachers in alternative certification programs within our building, and although the turnover is high each year, I think in every building we experience a 50% turnover with teachers. We're constantly training a new batch of teachers every single year through alternative certification programs. But the professional development is really important. So to answer your question, what kind of information or advice we could give to other principals in terms of making those dramatic gains is really supporting the teachers. So the work that we do is centered around climate and culture. The work that we do is centered around poverty. But the most impactful thing that really helps our students is the direct work that we do in helping to build the capacity of our teachers through professional development.
To hear you speak is remarkable. To say we started off year 1, at the end of the year we're not where we want to be, but we've made double-digit gains since then. I just think that's so remarkable, and it's truly a testament to your ability to coach teachers, the dedication of your teachers, and also just, I mean, you mentioned poverty plays a huge role, and it does, and we have to talk about it as a reality. There's so many factors outside the community that impact our schools, but rarely is that there ever a link. But thank you for your response.
Just real quick, one of the things that has really been important to our school is our culture and climate. And our school theme is positive energy activates constant elevation or peace. And a lot of times the students don't know they're coming to a turnaround school. And so we do things at our school because it's the best practice for all students. So when we took every one of our students to visit a college on one day, it was our Oxon Hill Middle School College Takeover Day, we did it because it was great for students. And so I think that, we just have to keep that in mind and always believe in our students. We have to let them know that we love them, let them know that we believe in them, and let them know that we're going to do anything possible to help them succeed. One of the things that we did this year was start off the year with giving every student a binder with dividers, with pencils and pens, just to start off the school year. And we've kept that practice up. So instead of fussing because they didn't have something because their parents didn't get it, I'd rather give it to them, put them back in class so that we continue focusing on instruction. So I think just the love of the work is important. And if I would give advice to any other principals, I would just say to continue to believe in your students and give them the best opportunities possible. That is always important because once they know that you believe in them, they will then start to believe in themselves and give you more.
I just want to say, whatever we can do policy-wise, budgetary-wise, we want to support you, and we're serious about it.
I think the advice that I would give to an incoming principal is that self-efficacy is really important, and being a self-reflector is really important. I always tell my teachers that I'm a teacher first before I'm a principal. And so when I make decisions for teachers, I make decisions that I, as a teacher, would be able to abide by and follow through with. And I had a unique situation this year because Oxon Hill and Thomas Johnson are not in the same grant, under the same grant as the other 4 turnaround schools. Our grant, we have an additional year on our grant. So this year was very unique because I had 20 plus, and I'll just stop there, teachers that I had to hire and employees within my building this year. That was very different for me. I've been in education now about 17 years. This has been the most difficult year because I've had to train brand new teachers because they have never taught in a school before. They're not educators. They came from different other backgrounds. And so it's been a very interesting year. And so you have to have a profound fortitude to be able to persevere through the waters that constantly sometimes overtake you as a principal and especially as a turnaround principal. And it's really important that you have a strong constituted faith to get through the difficult times because there are going to be plenty of them. And so as principals, a lot of times in our exec meetings, we've talked about policy. Why doesn't the board do this or why can't we do that? And because certain policies are not necessarily written to govern what we're doing as turnaround. And so one of the things that I would really ask is that we look at our policies and that would impact the work and turnaround. That's going to be really important. And I know that there are so many logistical things that go with that in terms of bargaining units and in terms of contracts and all those types of things. But when it comes to staffing, it's really crucial. And if I just ask if you remember nothing else tonight, please take the fact that staffing is so crucial because in a turnaround school, I have 20 plus brand new teachers. If I had never taught school before, I would be in bad shape because I've had to do a lot of the professional development for the teachers, writing it, training them on it, and implementing it. And so it's been difficult, but I'm starting to see the light bulbs go off for a lot of my brand new teachers, and they're starting to shine, but it's taken this long. And so the support of the board, we really appreciate that because it's good to know that we have people above us who are watching over us and protecting us, but the policies that govern what we do is something that we really need to visit.
And please email me the policy suggestions that you have because my chair has already told me my time is up, so please email me. And then also I just wanted to know really quickly, what happens when the grant runs out?
The grant did run out it runs out on June 30th for the first 4 schools, but we're picking it up through a combination of Title I and operating budget.
Good evening. My name is Tori Walker, and I am the resident principal at Benjamin Stoddard School. And so asking the question about new principals and what advice would they give, I just wanted to say that I have had an excellent mentoring experience at Benjamin Stoddard School. I have experienced a lot this year. I have learned from these principals from attending our council, our executive council meetings, and just having the support. So it's not like I have one mentor, but I have these mentors because they have opened their doors, they have offered assistance to me. So becoming a new principal, it has been an awesome experience to be in a turnaround school, because I think that I have experienced just about every situation that can be experienced as a principal. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to say, Dr. Arbogast, no, it's not a question. Dr. Arbogast and the superintendent, you guys do an amazing job at working hard for your staff and blocking for your staff. And I see what we're doing as a board in these times. Now it's us. We want you guys to do the work, and we want you to have the free reign, so we're blocking for you guys. And so I just wanted to mention that. And that's how I view it, because you guys are doing the work. You guys are doing the work, and it's important that we stand up for you all so that you can stand up for them.
I was wondering if I could jump in for a second, if that's possible.
Absolutely.
First of all, hello all. Good to see you all. And so there's been a lot of commentary about staffing, and I think my colleagues here have done a great job at articulating some of the frustration. But one, I wanted to assure you that we are in HR looking at these issues. We have conversations, have been into the schools to talk about the challenges that they face. And one of the things is important is that we continue to work with our labor partners around some of the tension around policy, if you will. So we continue to have those conversations, and we've made some different types of arrangements of support to give them the autonomy to really be selective in some instances of their staffing, which we didn't have the first time when turnaround schools were implemented. And so I wanted to acknowledge them, and particularly Dr. Dean. She's been really helpful to me in getting me to think differently and figuring out how to have the right conversations with our labor partners and with others for that matter. And in doing so, what you should know is that we send them people, and as Fletcher has eloquently stated, they filter them very carefully, because it takes a special person to be, one, a middle school teacher, which I am formerly a middle school teacher, two, to be a principal, and I am formerly a principal. So I really understand the seat that they sit in, and I take personal responsibility for really trying to support your efforts, and I want to be on record as stating such, and hopefully they could agree in those instances. The second thing, I think, Mr. Burrows, is that you raised a question around what type of other supports for principals do we put in place. And one of the things that my office is also responsible for is the School Leaders Network, where we put principals who focus on problems of practice that are issues and concerns for them, where they meet once a month. They have dinner and they kind of talk through some of the issues and challenges. They commiserate, but they also think and go through an inquiry model where they actually problem solve some of the issues that are relative to their work. And so we've had different groups. I had a group actually of elementary school special education principals email me today and say, we really appreciate this, keep putting this in place. So there are opportunities that we try to put them together. And then I don't know if I mentioned this, but we are working with Dr. Rhines to have a turnaround fair on May 11th. That's the date that's tentatively we're waiting for approval on them, so I wanted to let you guys know that as well. So I just wanted to let you know, one, I wanted to acknowledge you all because I do appreciate how hard you work, how patient you are, and want you to understand that we are working to support you, and so I wanted to be on record as stating such. So thanks for your hard work, team.
One other piece of advice I would want to give the other principals that have to do this type of work is you have to develop teacher leaders within your school. There's so much work to be done. If one principal thinks that he's going to do it all by himself, it's not going to happen. And so continue to develop the teacher leaders in your school, which probably all of us are going to be victim to them becoming administrators and leaving our school, because we have some great people that have assisted us in this work, and we definitely are not able to take all the credit, but we're going to have huge gaps. But that's a good thing for the system, but we have to continue to develop our teacher leaders.
Ms. Epps?
Thank you. I know we're running kind of late, and I want to keep this brief. But one of the things that popped into my head is, you know, I work in higher education, and so the thought did cross my mind of how we pay this forward and have the conversation, because we have all these urban education programs that really aren't teaching teachers how to be teachers in urban education, and so here we have it. And so I just wanted to get the conversation started and put it out there. Plant some seeds to the extent that they may or may not have already been planted, but to the extent that, you know, you all can take this thing on the road and, you know, change the world and the whole 9 yards, so that we can, because it starts with you, but then, you know, this is it. This is the crux of the work. We get this right, and that's where the real change starts to happen, because children who never had a shot get a shot, and they get a shot because of what you do. So as, you know, 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22-year-olds decide that they want to become a teacher, then they need to learn how to do it right. And so to the extent that we can connect, you know, these prime teachers and educators to those who are learning how to do it and doing it right, I'm excited about that, and I hope that we have a plan in place to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. So, sorry, but we have a university convening twice a year, and we'll make sure that this is a continued part of the process. What we're trying to do is evaluate how universities and who universities send to us so that they're prepared. So we're having conversations with over 50 of our closest range university partners. And so I'll be sure to make sure to extend the next invitation to you all as the board, so you can also come out and hear some of those conversations.
Thank you.
And the other thing is, in the earlier commentary, we talked about how Prince George's County is very much a leader around our teacher evaluation work, principal evaluation work, how we've structured to support principals, student-based budgeting, but we've also become a leader nationally in the turnaround movement. So all of these young folks that you see in front of you are now nationally renowned, and all of the issues that you address, Ms. Epps, we've actually been able to put policy decisions forward, had conversations with USDE. So you are actually looking at the team of national experts.
Thank you.